Okay, these pages have 6 people, so let's roll. The characters I'm doing are Vriska, as in Vriska Mariam Malone. Then we have John, okay. And narrator.
Right.
Which means that you're doing Vriska Serket, Gamzee, and Rose.
Cool.
So, there we go. Okay. Right. Vriska grabs Gamzee by the front of his shirt and yanks him down, her hot, furious breath brushing his disgusting face.
I said to you, you gotta chill, yo. It's high time. You got redemption on. See, you got to make some motherfucking amends to your tragic backstory. My what? Punk.
Vriska looks into his eyes. She beholds his serene expression and the casual sag of his shoulders. His posture is so contemptibly flaccid, it's as if he's literally wilting. Her gaze travels to where his weird, long fingers are wrapped around the curve of her shoulder. His hand is sticky for some reason. She notices a few strands of her black hair clinging to whatever highness substance is coating his hand. It's an image so viscerally objectionable to her that she nearly vomits. After all she's been through today, this is the last goddamn straw. Her eyes fill with fury, with indignation, with vivid radiating malevolence, and then it finally happens. She just plain fucking snaps.
Don't you dare!
Vriska clenches her fists together and slams them into Gamzee's nose, a brutal double-axe handle right off the hook. His nose makes a crunching sound like someone just steps in a pile of crackers. He stumbles backwards, cupping his palms over his face to catch the gush of blood.
Fucking touch me!
Vriska grabs him under the armpits and delivers a European-style uppercut with her bloody elbow. He expels a wheezy, gutted honk. It comes out slowly, mournfully, like a broken bike horn getting backed over by the rear wheel of a hearse. She spins out from under his flaming arm and does a full 360-degree pirouette off the fucking handle to deliver a ruthless knife chop straight to the cartilage at the center of his chest, like a veteran butcher getting down to business. And I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, really?
There you go. You're back.
All right. Did you hear that again?
No.
Okay. Again!
Gamzee tries to get his bearings, but Vriska is spinning back in the other direction with a discus back elbow. Her elbow connects with his cheekbone hard enough that it shatters. A sharp tooth goes flying out of his puckered lips so fast that John has to take flight to avoid it. Vriska takes a crow's hop back, grounding herself to swing a lead-legged kick right into his chin. Gamzee goes flying into a nearby tree. The first branch splinters on the impact of his spine. He gets clotheslined backwards by the second one, spins around us and face plants in a hard root under the tree. John winces, but not sympathetically. The impact was just that rough. That had to crack a rib or two. Vriska stalks over to Gamzee and triumphantly lifts him off the ground, high above her head, only to drop him and slam her knee into his face again. His lips split, staining her jeans bright purple. He's rolling from side to side on the ground, groaning as blood bubbles up from his mouth. It sounds like he's drowning. Vriska drags him to his feet again, her hands fisted in his shirt. With an impressive maneuver, hard for the eye to follow unless you're a trained wrestler, she adroitly twists her hand in his hair and reverse hangsmans him against a tree branch.
Unk! Why won't you just...
She slams his throat against a branch again and again. Each time he lets out a sound like a damaged squeeze toy, his bloated, slimy tongue unspooling like a frog's as the air is all crushed out of his esophagus. Shouting like a berserker, Vriska perpetrates a textbook groinal claw hold around Gamzee's codpiece and rips it right the fuck off. He yowls as if he had actual testicles to be mauled, and for all anyone knows, maybe he really does. He paws the air desperately and fecklessly after his treasured purple dick sock, but Vriska tosses it over her shoulder and shoves him into the mud with her heel. She grabs Gamzee by the hood, pulls him up, and then grinds the top of her shoe along the ridge of his broken nose, rubbing her laces into his eyes. Ah yes, John pauses a wince to admire, the good old bootlace eye rake. Jake loved that one back in the day, even though he had much more practice with the receiving end of it. Gamzee grabs Vriska's foot by the bridge. Instead of yanking her off balance, he opens his huge bloody maw of a mouth and runs his tongue along the rubber bottom of the shoe. Vriska freezes. She watches him lap the mud and his own blood out from between the grooves of his sole. His lips drag lewdly over the ridge of her footwear and begin sucking at where her big toe would be if it were not safely ensconced in several layers of rubber and canvas. He draws back, a string of glutinous, tinted saliva connecting the shoes to his lip, and catches Vriska's eyes with his own half-lidded gaze. His face is bruised, bloody, swollen. His makeup is a nightmarish disaster, but the expression he's giving her is unmistakable. It's not fear, not rage, not even pain. It's lust.
Ugh.
Vriska goes perfectly still, absolutely paralyzed by the sudden recognition. For several seconds, she doesn't dare move a muscle. And then, quite suddenly, Vriska reaches the plateau of rage so intense, so pure, that she isn't even seeing straight anymore. She howls like a storm cresting over the ocean, drowning out the sound of the human government's tanks firing their first volley over the battlefield. She lunges at Gamzee's catastrophic face lips first, and practically dives into his mouth, ramming her tongue into his lewd gaping maw like she's questing for prizes at a carnival. They roll over each other, groping, tearing, tongue-lashing, and vanish into the underbrush. Gamzee's unwashed stench is so bad, the motion of him being knocked over into the dirt wafts in John's direction. The stink hits him like an olfactory haymaker, and he does a full 180 to dry heave into the impact crater. Mercifully, John's attention is caught by someone calling his name from above. He has never felt so grateful for an excuse to look away from something in his life.
John, up here. I need to speak with you.
John looks up to see Rose waving at him while hanging out of the hatch patrol cruiser. John tries to smile at her, but all he can mutter is a weird, queasy expression. Rose looks glad to see him anyway. She drops to the ground when the Wallace cruiser comes in for a landing, followed out aggressively by her daughter, Vriska. Shit. John flies up to greet them more quickly than he would ordinarily in a situation where he wasn't trying to divert his friends and her teenage daughter's attentions away from a couple making out in the bush. He dips forward like he's going in to hug Vriska, to her apparent surprise due to his historical complete lack of desire for any physical contact to be made between them, but instead uses its momentum to spin her all the way around so that her back is facing the cursed shrubbery in the distance. Whoa, hey, old man. Hey, Vriska. Hey, Rose. Nice to see you both.
John,
John and Rose appear equally surprised themselves when Vriska hauls them in to seal the deal with a crushing hug of her own. Geez, hi Vriska. Hi John. This is great, just great. Hey, why don't we all just go over here to talk? For no reason at all?
Okay, if that's what you want.
Oh yeah, it's the thing I want most. The view on the other side of the ship is just amazing. Trust me. Rose cocks an eyebrow at him. Behind her, the bush releases a strangled, lusty honk.
Was that? Never mind. Vriska, why don't you go and help your mother with the deployments?
Ugh, I can't believe I had to actually listen to you now that we're at war.
Run along now, dear.
Thankfully, Vriska heeds her mother's commands and heads back to the cruiser. Rose tries to glance back towards the source of the suspicious honk, but John pulls her behind the ship beyond audible range of the activity taking place in the offensive bush. On this side of the cruiser, trolls are departing the hold in single file efficiency. They're all decked out in full Alternian military garb. It's the cool, Tron-looking stuff with the luminescent cording that matches their blood colours. Rose is wearing it too, John notices, in black and lavender. He gives her a concerned look up and down, then holds out his hands, palms up. So, I guess this war is really happening?
Yes, I understand that you don't want to be involved, and I respect your decision. However, I wanted to speak with you before we left.
Oh, thanks. I actually appreciate that a lot. I think I would have been pretty bummed out if you went off to your potential doom without saying goodbye. Now that I think about it, that's how all this started, isn't it? You were so sick that it looked like you were dying, and I was about to leave on a perilous mission. But now, here we are. It's almost like a circle of stupidity is complete. Rose laughs.
Don't be ridiculous, John. Nothing is complete. There is no true ending or beginning in this scenario.
Ha, yeah, right, because this is real life, right? I guess reading narrative relevance to a bunch of dumb and totally random events is kind of lame and childish.
No, that isn't what I meant at all. By all means, apply a narrative to our lives. Up until a certain point, it would have been perfectly accurate to do so, but not anymore.
Because it's not canon, right?
Do you remember what I told you years ago? About the 3 pillars of canon?
John strokes his chin and thinks very hard on this. Maybe too long, because Rose sighs and taps the bridge of his spectacles.
No is a perfectly valid answer to that question, John.
I just didn't want to make it look like I don't pay attention to your wordy philosophical babble.
I philosophically babble rather a lot, or at least I used to. It would be unfair for me to expect you to certain nearly three decades of oblique technical jargon regarding the metaphysics of the reality in which we inhabit.
Wow, we've known each other a long time.
Yes, we have. Well, it would be more accurate to say that we both have known. As I explained to you on that morning 16 years ago, there are three critical features of canon: essentiality, relevance, and truth.
Yeah,
We have been unted that word from the mooring of truth for some time now. So while we, in our subjective experience of conscious perception, feel in this moment that we have known each other for a very long time, technically it's not true at all.
contemplating the vastness of that statement makes John feel suddenly very small and sad. He shuts his eyes and runs a hand through his hair. Oh my god, Rose, it's too early in the day for this.
I agree, and besides, that is not what I wish to speak to you about. John, look at me.
Rose wraps her narrow hands around John's arms and pulls him gently toward her. He cracks his eyes open to see her face glimmering in the late morning sun. Her eyes are glossy and bright in the gleaming lights.
I want to thank you.
For what? Didn't I fuck everything up by not going to fight Lord English? It's my fault we're all living in this meaningless hell world where everyone's vaguely out of their minds and we're all about to go to war over freeing prisoners from the whipping cream camps. There.
Oh, whatever. The war is just as irrelevant as everything else that's happened here in the last decade and a half. At least with the conflict, we have something to do, something to strive for and against, something to believe in. I'm thankful for that. But more than anything, John, I'm thankful that I got a chance to be happy. I never
Rose pauses meaningfully, as if the realization is falling into place as she says it.
I never thought I would actually get to be happy.
Rose, you weren't happy before? When you married Kanaya? Before you got sick? When we were all together? Rose shakes her head. She brushes past John out towards the open field, away from the brewing battle. The land is so flat that it rushes out to meet the horizon uninterrupted for miles and miles. Rose is a pale flame against the brilliant haze of a perfect Earthsea morning. John doesn't follow after her. He lets her compose herself privately with her back to him. She clasps her hand in front of her and raises her head to look at the perfectly blue sky with its perfect sun and its perfect clouds, unmarred by the dark storm brewing on the planet below.
In complacency of
She corrects herself.
In the silly wizard story I wrote when I was a child, the realm most comparable to heaven existed in a state of subliminal
Conditionality.
conditionality, sorry, uh, dependent on the instance
Inscience? Not sure.
of the individual experiencing it. Which is to say that it would cease to exist the moment you realize that it was. And so those with knowledge would never truly be happy.
John looks at his hands, the same hands that held Harry Anderson when he was a baby, the same hands that tore up Terezi's photograph just a few hours ago, the same hands that remember steadying Rose in her sickbed 16 years ago, and the shaking feeling they'd awoken with that morning, a subharmonic symphony that can only be heard in the bones. All things that remain true to him, knowledge of what came before his choice and then after. There are things he can't forget, that he won't forget. Is this the reason he's felt like this for so many years?
But that isn't me anymore. I am blind against the veil of this world. It's all ambrosia to me. I don't care if it's not true. I can't even less if it's not canon. I have a beautiful wife who I love more than I thought possible, and a daughter who I immeasurably proud of. It can all be senseless, em, empho-
Ephemeral?
ephemeral noise that dissolves in the void, a whisper swept up by the wind before it's uttered. I'm still grateful to have felt this way. So, John,
Rose turns around, smiling. The smile was calm and honest. Her eyes are perfectly clear. There is no other word that could possibly do justice to her expression. She looks happy.
thank you.
She comes forward to give him a kiss on the cheek. John wraps his arms around her shoulders, pulls her into a tight hug, and breathes in the scent of her hair. Whatever the truth of the matter is, she still feels tangible and real to him. What does it mean to be real anyway? Around them, the first wave of bombs starts to go off. bright pinpricks of light and dark that flash and flame out, leaving a nanosecond of absolute dead silence in their wake. John's laughing when they pass. They're enveloped in a cloud of smoke and dirt so thick that they can barely see each other. Despite what Rose said about there being no ends or beginnings to them anymore, it feels very final. And in that moment, he thinks he understands. Finality was always up to him. He finally decides to allow it.